Hey everyone, today on the show, we are going to be talking about advancing movement and recovery in young athletes. And I have an expert with us today, Tom Swales. He is really top notch when it comes to rehabilitation, recovery. And I mean, he's got, you can see above, like above all of the certifications and degrees and things that he has, but physiotherapist, strength coach, really leader in the rehabilitation world. And what I love about Tom is that he's not just about fixing the problem, it's really about looking at the root cause of where we see issues with injury and pain and all these different things. And I was telling him that on our show, we deal with so many young athletes. He has two young kids that are athletes, and talking about what do we need to be doing from early on with kids in regards to looking at how their sport training and what types of things we can look for when it comes to pain management, hopefully preventing injury, rehabilitation, etc. So, Tom, super excited to have you on the show today. Now, I know that you obviously love science like I do, but you really have had a history yourself as an athlete, had a personal health crisis, which,
Mm.
to my understanding, is what really led you into this whole world of physiotherapy, movement, and really looking at the root cause of some of our pain and rehabilitation issues. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your story.
Yeah, so looking back, so I've always had an affinity towards movement, all sports,
Mhm.
interested in everything and anything that has to do with watching Van Damme growing up. I wanted to learn to do the splits and watching
Yeah.
gymnastics. I'm like, I'm going to go in the backyard and learn how to do backflips. And then, into my competitive sports, soccer took me to a scholarship in the US down at Graceland University. And then, still played semi-pro snowboarding career, kind of did that semi-professionally for fun. Um, but what allowed me to do all those things is just a general interest in all things sports and movement.
Mhm.
And with that natural interest, it brought me into the rehab side of things because of my ability to watch somebody move, break it down, kind of copy it, feel it, understand it. It allowed me to assimilate information and then also explain it to my clients and athletes on
Yeah.
how to do certain things and how to move a little bit more effectively for them.
Mhm.
And, you know, taking this lifelong interest in my own health, performance, optimization, biohacking, all the stuff,
Yeah.
it brought me to a pinnacle in 2023. I was hospitalized with invasive strep A, where I went
Wow.
straight into toxic shock. I had heart, liver, kidney failure. My feet went black. They had to put me on dialysis because I had
Oh,
rhabdo. I was on
wow.
respirators. I had to have blood infusions. So, 10 days in the ICU, 5 days or 5 weeks in the hospital. I had to learn how to walk, get up.
Wow.
I couldn't do anything for myself. And, when I got into the rehab side of things, I asked one of the docs, I said, what were my odds? He's like, oh, less than 20%. I said, oh, I was sick. He was like, you were super sick. And he said, the only reason you're here, and this came from multiple specialists, the only reason you're still here is because of how healthy you came in.
Wow.
And a couple of them shared with me that there was four other people that came in the hospital that year, that summer, and my age, less stuff going on. They didn't make it. So I was one of five
Wow.
that survived, and I was much more sick. I had much more
Mhm.
things going on than they did, and I didn't lose any toes. I still have all my little piggies, and I was able to kind of bounce back relatively quick. I mean, never as quick as we want to,
Right.
but that really put a test to the insurance policy that I've been paying, which is my health over the
Yep.
last 45 years of existence. And that's what really helped keep me here. So a lot of my friends, they came up to me, they're like, I don't know if I would have survived.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if you would have either. Like it was one of those grenades that I'm happy to jump on if it helps other people around me that I help and have
Mhm.
educated and worked with over the years, friends, family, to inspire them to take it more seriously
Yeah.
because you never know what life is going to throw at you. Like my wife was told, get your affairs in order because
Wow.
it's unlikely your husband's going to make it through this. And we did. Amazing support from friends,
Yeah.
family, colleagues who come over and treat me. I did all the IV therapies. I did, but it forced me to test my own system. So
Yeah.
it really
Right.
tested to put my money where my mouth is. I created the AMT
Yep.
certification I'm like, okay, well, let's rebuild from the ground up. And even at rehab, at the hospital I knew, and they were great, and they'd come and get me and they'd take me to rehab. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, well, put a mat down and let me roll around for 30, 40 minutes. And it was hard. It was
Oh,
like
I can't even
you're on
imagine.
morphine and everything hurt. And and then once I finished on the ground, then they'd get me in the chair and we'd go do squats up on the bar and then try and walk with crutches. And it was really relearning how to do everything. But
Wow.
taking that mindset of, I've been there before,
Hmm.
and I want to get back what I lost,
Hmm.
because, you wake up and you have the amount of energy to go from your bed to the couch, and that's it.
Wow.
And from being, doing everything on your own, helping everybody, to being dependent on everybody. It was an eye
Hmm.
opener, but it was also very motivating for me to be like, well, I can't help my family. I can't help those around me anymore. And I want to get back to where I
Yeah.
was. So, um, I think I put on about 30, 40 pounds
Wow.
of relative muscle within the first 5 months. And then the strength
Wow.
and everything started
Yeah.
coming. I had ankle surgery. So the body was a mess, and it's still in recovery mode. There's still
Yeah.
days where, I was essentially poisoned.
Yeah.
And so we're still doing all the things. It's a never-ending process, but it it helped me open my eyes and really appreciate again what I had, and also motivated me to what I lost and
Yeah.
where I want to be.
Well,
Um,
and what empathy it gives you
mhm.
towards the
Yeah,
clients,
yeah,
athletes, like I mean, it's one thing to have like,
mhm.
broken an ankle or torn an
Sure,
ACL, but it's another thing to have gone through all that. I'm sure it allows you
yeah,
to relate so much more because you've actually had to go through the system
yeah,
of rehab, rebuild, and all of
yeah,
that. I mean, nothing
yeah,
makes you know it more than doing it yourself.
yeah. No, going through the process, and you definitely have more empathy. And when clients come in, and you feel for them, you connect
Yeah,
with them more,
totally.
absolutely. And but I think where I think I fell back is I have more empathy, but I think I have a little less patience for
Ah,
excuses.
because
Right?
you probably have the discipline
And,
gene and you were
well,
willing
I
to
know,
do it. Yep.
but and I'm not putting myself up on,
Yep.
I'm not like, hey, I'm on my high horse here, and I did it, you should do it. But I understand, like, life gets
Yeah.
in the way, and
Yeah.
but it's now, well, how can we get around these barriers?
Right.
How where if we don't create the discipline and block it in our day, we're
Yep.
not gonna do the things that we need to do. And it's easy to push it to the side, but if we schedule
100%.
it, if we prioritize it, then we're going to execute it.
Yep, totally. So, man, what a dramatic yet inspiring story to show people that they can do it. So, obviously, you being an athlete and then obviously working in all the space from strength and conditioning,
Yeah,
physiotherapy, so on, all the different areas. I am sure that you have seen tons of shifts in how we look at movement, how we look at rehab, especially too with like young athletes. We were talking before this started about
yeah,
how young athletes, they just train younger and younger now. They
yeah,
are obviously moving a ton
yeah,
and not a lot of room for recovery. So I know like in my world of nutrition, you just even in I think we're about the same age. So in that my 20 years ish of this space, you're like, oh my gosh, you've seen it evolve so much. So I'd be interested to see like kind of how you've seen the evolution and how
yeah,
we're more advanced as it relates to rehab and performance.
yeah. So growing up, we had season sports.
Yeah.
When
What? It
summertime.
started and ended?
I know. Yeah, there's a finish and an end, right?
Yep.
Or there's a beginning and an end. So soccer season, okay, starts, late in the spring, goes to the fall. That's done. Okay, well, now it's moving into the next sport. And then wintertime is you're doing your
Mhm.
winter sport, whether it's basketball or skiing or snowboarding,
Right.
whatever it is. And then spring comes along. Okay, what's the spring sport that I'm doing? So there's rotation in that, especially
Mhm.
early on. And what I've seen, and again, with friends, family, kids are just specializing so early. Like, hockey is the sport in Canada, and once you get into that cult
Yeah.
of competitive hockey, it's hard to get out of. And
Wow.
kids are playing year round. Oh, your kid's good enough. Well, you're on the house league. You should try out for the rep team. Well, now the
Yeah.
kids are playing for two teams,
Yeah.
and they're on the ice 5, 6 days a week, and there's a tournament every other weekend. And then there's summer. Oh,
Yeah.
well, if your kids should get on
Yeah.
they should come out for the summer team, because they might not make the fall. Well, if the kid's good enough, you're going to take them, right? But
Right.
everyone gets trapped in that, oh, I don't want my kid to get left
Yeah.
behind and this, that, and the other. But you see kids burn out. You know, they
Yeah.
love it. And as long as they love it and they're like, that's all they want to do, okay, cool. But we still need to encourage them to do other things.
Yeah.
A form of recovery, especially for kids, is do something different. They don't have to do nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to not do anything, but rotate them into other activities, other sports to develop motor patterns and more variety, more creativity, so that when they go back to their sport, they have more options to learn
Yeah.
from, right? Because there's carryover with every
Yeah.
single sport. You know, you're playing hockey, okay, you got your feet are in skates, but then go play soccer. What does that do? It works on single leg balance and acceleration and foot strength
Yeah.
and change of direction. And instead of playing with your hands, you're now playing with your feet. So now
Yeah.
the motor and sensory cortex is now developing the foot and the hips a little bit differently. So maybe that translates into better edging, maybe better awareness and ability on the ice.
Hmm.
So when kids do too much of one thing, we're starting to see a lot of orthopedic issues in their
Yeah.
hips. They're blowing out ACLs at 10, 12 years old.
Young.
I'm like, what is
Yeah.
going on? Hip labral tears, goalies are, butterflying too much and their hips aren't developed and they just don't have the time off from that sport to develop structurally.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden they get injured and then maybe they lose confidence and their career gets shortened just because their bodies can't handle it, regardless of,
Yeah.
what they want to do. And yeah, like, will the kids develop slower in the sport early on? Yes. But long term, if they're still excited to play that sport when they are
Yeah.
structurally more mature and they can handle more volume
Hmm.
when it's appropriate, then all of a sudden you just see them accelerate in that
Yeah.
sport. But people are too impatient. They're like, I don't want my kid to fall behind. I'm like, well,
Right.
if they're good, they're good. And it doesn't matter. So if they're going to be in the NHL and they love it and they have the drive to do it, they will, they're going to have
Yeah.
a higher likelihood. But if they're kind of in the middle of the pack and, they don't love it, then they're definitely not going. So what are we doing? you
Yeah.
know and then we sacrifice family time as well, so the families are
Yep.
now all split up doing different things with
Everywhere.
different
Yeah.
kids and everywhere.
Hmm.
And my wife and I, early on, we would see parents come into the clinic, one of their kids gets injured, one of three, and we had a mom break down
Yeah.
trying to figure out scheduling. She's like, I don't know how to get my kid here for rehab because my other two are playing sports every day.
Yeah.
And we're like, we don't want that for our life. So our kids being 11 and 9, they're slowly figuring out what they like. Our
Yeah.
son is still he likes soccer, but he likes a lot of other different things. Our daughter did karate, soccer. She's loving basketball. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's starting to really practice on her own and she wants to
Hmm.
develop that skill and she's getting really good really quick, which is awesome. So we're going to lean into that. But
Yeah.
we're going to encourage her, you know what, try for volleyball next year too, because that's still going to develop your vertical and your jumping ability and your movement
Yeah.
mechanics and your hands and this, that, and the other. So, once, once they start to kind of really love or focus on one, fine, but still encourage
Yeah.
them to do other things.
Yeah, my nephew's 6.5. Seems like
Yeah.
an older 6.5. And I mean, he really, I've seen he's like baseball, basketball,
Uh,
flag football. And
Great.
quite frankly, he really is not good at any of them. However, all of the sudden, in probably the last 6 months, he's like any boy, we live in Texas, you can go outside most of the times of the year. And he's got
Yep.
about a 30-minute attention span. He's got 30 minutes on football, 30 minutes on, hitting a ball with my
Fine.
dad. My parents have done
Yep.
it. 30 minutes on tetherball, 30 minutes on running, 30 minutes on
Perfect.
the thing. And it's interesting because I saw him play flag football back in the fall. Oh,
Yep.
good Lord. That running, grab a flag, pay attention to the game a lot. But just playing and being outside and
Yep.
playing different
Yep.
sports for his little things. To your point, I saw him play in the spring and I'm like, wow, what an
Yep.
improvement. And a lot of it
Yeah.
is he's just playing around with different sports,
Yep.
not organized by any stretch, just
No.
things that he does. And
Yep.
I was watching him run with my dad one day, and he's running backwards, catching footballs, and I was like, I mean, he's just doing it from playing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a lot because I mean, to what you're saying, so many athletes are just young athletes are just nonstop
Yep.
in the same sport. And I've heard that by lots of my strength coach friends and athletic trainers. They're repeating the same movement over and over and over
Yeah.
again, and how negative that can be, especially when we're talking about growing athletes too.
Yeah. Right. Like their structures, at 6.5, you know,
Hmm.
their structures can't handle a lot of volume, but they
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
handle short bouts of intensity, focused intensity, but you keep it more play-based. Keep it fun, right?
Yeah.
Keep the
Yeah.
brain and the cerebellum
Yes.
engaged. And
Hmm.
then when they get bored of it, well, there's not much learning going on at that point because they're not paying attention. Or maybe
Right.
their nervous system
Right.
got a little fatigued. So
Yeah.
great, go play something else. Let them
Yeah.
rotate naturally. It gets too structured early on, and we force these kids to start loading
Hmm.
up all this volume because they need to develop these skills. Like if you just give them the freedom to play and explore, their
Yeah.
nervous system will figure it out because kids are perfectly balanced. Their bodies are
Yeah.
balanced when they're early. They have the mobility. They have just
Hmm.
enough strength and control to manage that mobility. But when
Hmm.
their nervous system gets tired, the structure starts to kind of not fall apart, but
Yeah.
they start to get clumsy and you start to see that.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, well, let's go do something else. And once they're finished developing structurally, okay, great. Now we can start to add on the
Yeah.
volume. Now
Yeah.
we can get a little bit more structured, but that comes on later.
Yeah.
11 girls and boys, they obviously develop
Right.
different timelines. So girls can typically start to develop or specialize, around 11, 12.
Hmm.
Boys, they really shouldn't specialize to like 14, 16
Yeah. Because
between
of
that because their
development.
bodies are,
Hmm.
yeah, right. Like you look at gymnastics, their structures can handle more training early on in gymnastics, which is why,
Yeah.
they do the competitive. But
Yeah.
the boys, especially for some of the things, they don't start getting into those advanced things until they're like early teenagers because, they're doing crosses and they're exploding, like their joints will blow up, right? You
Yeah.
can't
It's
get them
so
to do a lot of
interesting.
the, and there's so much practice that needs to be
Yeah.
done so that they don't injure themselves. But
Yeah.
everyone's a little impatient with it and think that, well, we need to, they're going to go to the Olympics. Maybe, but
Maybe.
if they get hurt, they're definitely not going. If they get
Yeah.
demotivated, they're
100%.
definitely
Yeah.
not going. If you
Yeah.
can just keep it fun, get that variety, get quality, look at quality movement over
Yeah.
quantity, improve their self-awareness.
Yeah.
And self-awareness just means like playing different things. Like
Yeah.
your son or not your son, your nephew, he all of a sudden started figuring out how to run backwards and
Exactly.
pivot.
Yeah.
Nobody probably
Yeah.
coached them. Like we don't
Mm-mm.
coach our kids to crawl. We don't coach our kids to walk.
Yeah.
They figure
Just
it
gotta
out.
do
You
it. Hmm.
put them in the environment and they will figure it out, a
Yeah.
lot of these things, right? To move as efficient as possible. And we get in
Oh,
the way of that.
yeah. Yeah. By all the things. Okay. So I was going to ask you this in a minute, but I'm going to jump ahead to this one question because you
Mhm.
mentioned like the nervous system and like with
Yeah.
young athletes and that developing. Talk a little bit about how like the nervous system impacts both like performance,
Mhm.
rehab, and even as you're talking about a lot for these younger athletes.
So coming out of physio and AT school and everything, I was always like,
Hmm.
yeah, orthopedics, like
Yeah.
everything's the physical structured body,
Right.
ligaments, tendons, muscles get stronger, this, that, and the other. And then when I started to evolve my perspective and start looking through the lens of the nervous system and neurology, I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, everything is neurological
Yeah.
because the nervous system runs everything. The nervous system's in charge.
Hmm.
The brain is sending signals, it's creating motor patterns,
Yeah.
it's feeling the environment, it's increasing that awareness,
Right.
it's reacting to what's going on around them. And as soon as you start looking at the physical body and sports, orthopedics, pain through the nervous system,
Hmm.
it gets a lot more clear as to what we really need to develop first. And it's really, that mind body connection first,
Hmm.
with a lot of variety, with certain inputs, environmental stimuli, to
Hmm.
keep it engaged and let them figure it out. We use 2x4s and balance beams in our rehab clinic. We can sit there and try and coach somebody to walk differently. But if I get them walking on a balance beam, they're going to organize and they're going to figure it out because I don't
Yeah.
have to coach them. If they
Yeah.
fall off, well, guess what? Their brain now figured out, hey, I made a mistake. Let's do something different next time.
Yeah.
And then 60 seconds later, they walk across it just fine. I'm like, well, what happened there? Well, we applied some inputs. The nervous system sensed, oh, you know what? We made some movement motor mistakes. Let's try a different motor pattern this time. And all of a sudden, success.
So
Now the
interesting.
brain's
I
just
was
like,
about to
oh,
ask, like,
I
how do
know
you
what to do now.
train it? Yeah, how do you
Yeah.
train your nervous system? That's a good example, though, of it.
It's an environmental thing. So
Got
you
it.
create the environment that's sensory rich. And
Interesting.
sometimes you need to create restrictions to encourage movement in a certain way.
Hmm.
And sometimes you just need to let them fail because it's that error and compare that the cerebellum, especially, it learns to move. It learns by watching
Interesting.
somebody
Yeah.
do something. and then it copies it, and then it just starts to self-evaluate. Hey, was that the right thing? Did we accomplish that? Oh, you know what? We were 5 degrees off. Okay, well, we do it again. Now it's smoother. Now it's more efficient. But it's simply from them watching and copying, and then they try it, and then it's a trial and error. So as
Interesting.
coaches, too many times we're sitting there, getting laryngitis, trying to coach somebody through a squat pattern. I'm like, well, have
Yeah.
them stand up against the wall, right? Face a wall, and then watch people squat perfect. Because if they start pitching forward, they hit their face off the wall. Well, the
Right,
nervous
right.
system is going to be like, I don't want a broken nose. So
Right.
maybe we straighten our spine, posture up, and we sit into the hips, and then they squat perfect, right?
Very
So
interesting.
if
Yeah.
that's an example of setting up the environment and putting some kind of physical cue in the environment to encourage a better movement pattern.
I love that. I was a dancer growing up. And so obviously it's a lot of balancing and doing things on like one foot. And I
Yep.
still, like as an adult, if I'm doing lighter weights, I'll stand on one foot to do it. And it
Right.
is so interesting to see like if someone walks by at the gym and I catch my vision going,
Yep.
I mean, you'll lose your balance so fast. And I'm like, tune in. You know how to stand. I know how to stand on one foot, but I
Mhm.
remember like watching it and you get a feel for it. And you're like, oh, that's what it is. Like that's how
Yep.
you do it. You're like, okay, and it's like, remember, repeat, repeat. So it's just
Yep.
super interesting to hear how you train that.
Right.
I think a lot
But
of my parents don't think about that coaches even, especially at
no.
the younger level, if they haven't been trained, like really trained like you
Yeah.
in movement. And lots of coaches are more coming from the coaching side of thing. And and oftentimes they're the ones that are the strength coaches, especially at the younger age. And so
Yeah.
it's super interesting.
The more veteran coaches, they will learn to talk less, and they'll give one cue, work on
Yeah.
this one thing, and then get them to feel it, execute. Oh, did you feel
Hmm.
it? Yeah, it felt different. And then give them one more thing, rather than the
Yeah.
inexperienced coach will try and fix everything all at once. And then the person's like, I don't,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. Like going back to your dance, where
Hmm.
there's mirrors
Yeah,
everywhere, right?
exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
Because you're seeing how you're, so we feel something and
Hmm.
we might think that it feels right, but then you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, I'm crooked. And then all of a
Right.
sudden you're getting that external feedback visually,
Interesting.
and then
Yeah.
you can position yourself. Okay, hold that position. Now move out of that position. Now move back into that position. But the mirror is providing the feedback, which is your environment, right? That's your
Yeah.
external, that's your feedback loop, right? And this is
Yeah.
where we can use movement and the nervous system as a feedback loop as to whether we're effective or not. When we're doing something right, things feel effortless. Oh, all of a sudden I can jump
Yeah.
higher. Oh, I feel more coordinated. Oh, I'm moving faster. Well,
Yeah.
that's the nervous system saying, hey, I like how you're moving. I'm going to take the
Hmm.
brakes off. I'm going to
Interesting.
improve organization, and I'm going to improve power. But when something's disorganized, when we're moving ineffectively or inefficiently, and the nervous system doesn't feel safe with that, guess what happens? You lose balance, your power output goes down, and all of a sudden things feel stiff, and it doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
right? It feels
Yeah.
more effort.
So
So
would you
this,
say, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, so for young kids, like, middle school, high school, you highly recommend not just even playing different sports, but, like it's funny because you'll have kids that'll play a sport and then they want to go jump on their bike and then they want to
Yep,
like play basketball while they're not a
yep.
basketball player. So that, I guess, all of those different types of activities, like what you're saying, is training the brain to work
Yeah,
in different
different
ways.
ways, in different ways, gives them more option. Like how,
Very
okay, we
interesting.
can say, well, how is riding a bike effective for running or playing soccer?
Hmm.
Well, you have to balance, right? Now
Yeah.
it's trunk control, right?
Right.
And we're
Totally.
moving at
Yeah.
speed. And then, you go mountain biking. Now you're on a trail. So now you
Yeah.
have to pay attention to your environment. Don't hit the tree. All
Yeah.
right. So now I have to dance with my bike and I have to balance and I have to shift my weight really, really
Yeah.
quickly. And I have to use tactics, and I have to kind
Yeah.
of look ahead and pre-plan what's my attack, what's my strategy
Yeah.
for this,
Super
how am I
interesting.
going to navigate through this. So now all of a sudden, okay, we use mountain biking there, and we with when I was working with the Olympic ski team, half of their
Hmm.
training in the summertime was mountain bike racing. Like
Yep.
we'd be out in BC and we'd be mountain biking 3 4 days a week. Well, that's going to increase lactic acid, that's going to increase cardiovascular, it's going to
Right.
get their legs going, it's easy on the legs, so it can help with
Hmm.
recovery, so we're not pounding that. But
Right.
when they're doing the downhill, they have to navigate around trees, they're going over jumps, they have
Yeah.
to, use tactics, which is ski racing. So there's so much
Very
carryover
interesting.
from mountain biking to ski racing, because you're getting all the cardiovascular, the leg strength, the endurance, as
Hmm.
well as going fast downhill, which would
Yeah.
be like going around gates, and you have to navigate yourself through that
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, everything in the body is just so interconnected. It's so interesting. I think
Yeah.
people try to isolate like all the things, but I think that it's probably a little bit to like what we've learned over time. Even like my world, nutrition, your world, like we know that like the gut and nutrition like dictates so many things that's going on in the body. The brain is dictating so much where it comes to movement and what you're learning. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So let me ask you, so thinking back to like, well, I know one of the things that you really focus on is like root cause rehabilitation. And we talk
Yeah.
about, athletes we were mentioning how lots of times they just keep playing, keep playing, keep playing, and maybe they're getting injured. We joke, I worked in college sports for a long time, and we are like, we actually think the off season might be harder than the season at this. There's
Yeah.
no off season. I mean, it's just like a
Yeah.
continuation of the same thing. So talk to me a little bit about like root cause rehabilitation and when athletes are going through all of these different types of sports and training and kind of like your theory and training them, rehabbing them,
Mhm.
especially for ones that are playing multiple sports that might even overlap.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing with athletes they have a very heavy training schedule.
Hmm.
um, a lot of times they don't realize imbalances are happening, right? All
Yeah.
of a sudden they're like, oh, this feels tight. It's not an injury,
Mhm.
but it's a little signal saying, you know what, something might be off.
Yeah.
Something might be being overused. And then they kind of
Yeah.
ignore it and they keep, and just like, you know what, the signal's getting a little bit louder.
Yeah.
With athletes, if you can improve self-awareness through some form of self-assessment, even something basic,
Mhm.
that was one of the tools I created for my athletes
Yeah.
is I call it self-awareness movement scan because if they get injured, they can't do their sport. So now they're doing rehab.
Right.
Well, if
Right.
they can't train, that means they can't excel at their sport. So our job as coaches and strength and conditioning specialists is we need to build that resiliency, that self-awareness, and that
Hmm.
capacity so that they can stay in the game. Well,
Hmm.
the weight training and all the movement patterns, those are all great. But how do we know if what they're doing is at least working on some fundamental movement patterns or building better self-awareness? All of a sudden you're like, this feels tight. Maybe we should stretch it. Well, maybe it's weak. Or maybe it's compensating for something else.
Yeah.
Maybe it's maybe because you're a rotation athlete, maybe one side of your cerebellum, maybe one side of the brain is firing up harder than the other, and it's creating tightness on one side and inhibition on the other.
Interesting.
So I
Yeah.
created this scan. I call it self-awareness, and it's three cerebellar tests that we use for concussion.
Hmm.
It's called a Sharpen-Romberg Fukuda test and some coordinated movements. Great.
Hmm.
If those are all clear, can your neck bend? Bend? Does it twist? Does it pinch? Is there pinch, pain, pull? Can you touch your toes? Can you back bend? Can you rotate? Can you stand on one leg? And can you squat? If anything feels off, one side or the other, either it feels different or something's a little bit more restricted, well, we need to start figuring out why. And once you start breaking out the pieces, you're like, oh, this hip isn't opening up. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Is it a capsular or soft tissue problem or motor control? Well, we can very quickly and easily go after that because we do a little bit of band work. Maybe we do some mobility work or we do some motor
Hmm.
control. All of a sudden, oh, it cleared up.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We just reorganized that one little weak link that was maybe throwing the system off, and we clean that up, and now everything feels great. And all of a sudden the nervous system kicks back on. So
Yeah.
now that little tightness area is gone. So if we can catch those little imbalances before they become injury, well, that keeps the athletes in the game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be fancy, which is why I created it. And it's only a three
Right.
minutes. And if athletes can do this on their own, they stay out of rehab. But it's tricky because if they don't have access to a coach or a rehab expert
Yeah.
who can screen them every single time or every single
Hmm.
day or whatever, which most people don't have that luxury,
Right.
they need to be responsible for themselves. So the best thing we can do is create a little bit better self-awareness in our
Hmm.
athletes to give them some form of a movement scan. And if it's clear, great, go do your warm up. But if something feels off,
Yeah. What if it's
now
not? What if they're doing the movement scan and it's off? Then what do they
right.
do?
Well, then there's a little algorithm to show them corrective exercises. It's
Ah,
like, yeah. So all of a sudden you hit this little fork in the road. You're like, oh, my single leg balance is off. Oh, but my hip doesn't open. Okay. Well, maybe the glutes shut down on you. Maybe the hip flexors got a little bit turned off or overstretched. So we
got
go
it.
after those things, and then you go back and check. You're like, okay, it's clear now. And you know, I've used this with my professional athletes, and
Hmm.
it empowers them to manage themselves rather than be
Yeah.
dependent on us. Oh, this doesn't feel right. Okay, well, I don't need to sit there and massage it or needle it or, manipulate or whatever it
All the
is.
things. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the things. I'm like, you just need these three little exercises. We're going to alter the inputs. We're going to integrate new movement, and we're going to
Hmm.
reinforce it with load. So we call it we're airing it out. AIR. Alter the inputs, integrate, and reinforce.
Okay, I like it.
And it quickly sorts it out most of the time before it becomes a problem. So now all of a sudden they squat and they're like, oh, my back doesn't hurt anymore. Okay, well, cool, because you balanced out both hips or you balanced out the ankle or whatever it was that they found in the scan. And now they can just continue to train.
Very
But
interesting.
if they continue to ignore it, they keep chasing after that
Yeah.
pain area or that discomfort or that tightness, and nobody gets to the root cause of why it's there in the first place. And oftentimes, the signal or the discomfort area is a symptom. It's rarely the cause. The cause
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
someplace else.
The way I've
And you're
always learned
loading
any
up
injury. Yep. It's like, where is
any
that
injury.
coming from? Yep.
I know. I'm more bullish on saying like 99% of little pains and injuries are rarely the cause. Unless
Yeah.
like someone comes in, they slide tackle you, they hit your knee. Okay, we know what caused that knee pain. But those little things that kind of pop up out of nowhere,
Yep.
those are signals saying we're overloading some tissues. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe you're ignoring a weak side, and maybe
Yeah.
you're overusing the strong side. Maybe down the kinetic chain in the foot and the ankle, maybe the ankle's a little stiff. Maybe that's why your groin is getting a little overused, or vice
Hmm.
versa. So if we can teach our athletes to screen themselves and create a little bit better awareness, we can prevent a lot of injuries that way.
Yeah. What about as you were talking, it made me think like, so I think to like, the middle school, high school, even like college phase, where you've got one athletic trainer to a
Yep.
bunch or one coach, to a bunch of athletes. Can they do this? Like, I
Yep.
guess you could
Do as a
like
group.
coach it where everyone learns it and then like the whole
Yep.
team is doing it
The whole team does it.
together.
Yep. Right. So it's one of those tools. It takes a little time to build on the front end,
Yeah, to
but
learn it on
once
the front
they
end.
once they get it, it's literally 3 minutes. And now all those preparation exercises that these older athletes come in with,
Hmm.
they come in, they're like, they got 15, 20 rehab exercises that they need to do to feel good. I'm like, what a waste of time. Now you spent 30 minutes doing prep work. Now you
Right.
have to do your warm up, and now we have to do a workout.
Yeah, all the
Well,
things.
do you think your quality of your workout's going to be good by the second or third block? No, because you're already tired because you wasted a bunch of time on these things that probably weren't
Right.
necessary. But if you had an assessment tool to figure out, oh, you know what? I only need to unlock this one part of my body and then
Hmm.
correct it. Well, go do your general warm up. So you save a ton of time in the
Yeah.
movement preparation because you just took the time to learn a simple little assessment tool that can just screen out little imbalances in your body that may have just started to acquire over time.
And we're going to put the link to this little assessment tool
Yes, we will.
in the show notes so that
There we
everyone
go.
can have it. Yeah. And I mean, I know, like, I would assume, like, if you're paying attention and you're doing that, you're likely to prevent future pain, prevent future injury, and
Yep.
hopefully, because you said that that's something you have athletes do it every day, right?
Yep. Yep. Every day. So if I'm working with, if they're coming in and I'm working with them training every day, they
Mm-hmm.
come in, they check their blood pressure, they do grit. That's another thing that I do is give me a
Huh.
scale, 0 to 10, sleep quality, energy,
Yeah.
resilience, capacity, stress. I want to know how they're psychologically they're feeling,
Yeah.
how intuitive they are, and then I measure that against grip strength, blood pressure.
Ah,
That's a dark cue that I do. And
yeah.
then I'm like, go do your SAM scan. And I don't have to sit there and scan them because they know. And then once they get to their little, fork in the road, they correct it and then they rescan it. How do you feel?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. Great. Let's go warm up.
Interesting.
So you can do this on a full team. You teach them how to do
Yeah.
it. I've done this with my old university
Mm-hmm.
at Graceland. We started implementing this with the entire soccer program so that they know what to do. They show up. Oh, this is feeling. Scan yourself. Are you balanced? Yes or no? If not, scan yourself, correct the problems, and then once it's
Oh,
fixed, go
interesting.
do your warm up. So it saves the coaches a ton of time.
Yeah.
It saves the trainers a ton of time, and it
Mm-hmm.
saves the athletes a ton of time and keeps them out off the table and out of the training room and on the court or on the field of play.
Yep. I love that. Yeah, it's a great tool to be able to
Mhm.
hopefully prevent some forms
Yeah.
of injury
I
and
mean,
pain and all the
nothing's
things.
guaranteed, but at least we can reduce the
Yeah,
likelihood.
right. And
That's all
reduce
we
the
can do,
risk.
right?
That's what we want
Right.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about like obviously reducing risk and rehab. So I would love to hear like talking to obviously young athletes, parents, coaches. what is like the number one rehab thing that you wish people would like never do or lose altogether? And then what would be like the number one rehab thing you think that people should total, especially like young athletes, should definitely be paying attention to and do? Because there is so much information out there. And I have heard parents, they're
There's a
doing
lot.
what they did when they were an athlete, what they saw
Yep.
on something else. And I would, from an expert, like a lot of like the things in nutrition I hear, I'm like, you did what? Don't
Yep.
ever do that. So I would love to hear from your side, like what's like the best thing that you can do from like a not like a massive injury, but
Mhm.
general rehab. And what's the thing
Yep.
you're like, oh my gosh, please don't do this.
So I like to approach it from first principles. So somebody
Okay.
comes in and they've got all of these imbalances.
Mm,
Let's just say it's the general population. They're coming in and they're really deconditioned. I'm like, well, let's go down to the floor. Let's go back to the ground and learn how we learn to move as babies. You
yeah.
know, we do dead bugs and bird dogs and all this stuff, but they help reorganize spine posture, core control, breathing, cross reflexes.
Hmm.
There's a reason why when we come into this world, we spend so much time on the ground
Yeah.
because we're developing the motor system and movement system
Yeah. It's
from a
interesting.
spine supported position. And then when the nervous system says, hey, we have enough control here from the spine supported laying on our back,
Hmm.
let's roll over onto our tummies. Okay. And
Yeah.
then we're going to start pressing up and then we're going to start crawling. And
Yeah.
then once we start crawling, we develop this spine suspended position. And now the spine can manage those rotation and shear
Yeah.
forces. Now the nervous system's like, okay, we can go
Yeah.
upright
So
now.
interesting. I mean,
Right.
you think
And
about it,
then,
we were designed to basically
yeah,
figure it out.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so as a warm up, I like to show my athletes, I'm like, do a ground-based warm up. Start from the ground, work your way up into standing.
Okay.
At least then you're doing some rocking, some rolling, some crawling, you're opening up the hips, you're doing transitions. And then all of a sudden now you're into standing and then you go into like literally you can do a really good warm up less than 10 minutes, but
Okay.
start from the ground. Can you
Interesting.
rock to standing? Can you
Yeah.
roll both directions? Right? Because what's a roll? Rolling is actually running and walking. Because when we walk, we're actually coiling. We're transferring and spinning our
Yeah.
spine and our body weight onto that foot. When runners come to me, they're like, I get this knee pain and hip pain, back pain. Cool. Can you stand on one leg? And they can't. And oftentimes it's
Interesting.
on the non-painful side. So
Yeah.
their painful
Interesting.
side is the side they actually balance really well on because
Huh.
their nervous system knows that's the strong side. They're hitting the ground harder, but they're avoiding
Got it.
this side. So all of a
Yeah.
sudden, oh, you know what? You can't balance on the right leg. Let's check your rolling pattern. You can't roll that way either. So we have to reestablish rolling patterns because a roll is a pivot. It's a cut.
Yeah.
It's also
Makes
it's a
sense.
weight transfer through the spine. And then all of a sudden, we reestablish the rolling. We go back up. Single leg balance is fixed. Okay, cool.
Mm,
Now try running again. Oh, it doesn't hurt. Well, because we reestablished that spin or that motor
interesting.
control at a
Yeah.
reflex level at the spine, and
Yeah.
everything's reorganized. Everything's reintegrated. But we are asymmetrical creatures by nature. We're
Yeah.
typically one side dominant. If you're right-handed, you have
Hmm.
this typically a left rotation, left roll dominance.
Yeah.
So we're going to load onto that left side. If you're very, left rotation dominant
Hmm.
and you strike, well, now everything's loaded up more on that left side. For me, example, I'm very right-handed and I will get left knee issues. I will get left low back. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Check my balance. Okay, balance is not great on the right side, and I have to do rolling patterns to the right to kind of
Interesting.
take the pressure off to reorganize my
Yeah.
cerebellum, cervical reflex, spine reflex, everything to the right
Jeez.
because I'm so dominant on the left side. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden now I'm like, oh, my back doesn't hurt anymore. I can touch my toes. The nerve tension's gone. Great, let's go swing a kettlebell. Right. But if I
So
didn't do that
interesting.
and I
Yeah.
go swing a kettlebell and I start doing sprints, all of a sudden my left low back starts to get really, really cranky and things start falling apart.
So interesting. That I mean, it makes total sense. You just
Yeah.
wouldn't think through like how, I mean, it makes so much sense. Okay, what
Yeah.
about the thing that like rehab that you wish people would just forget that people think is the best thing to do? Like if it's you're talking to a parent, coach of young kids, like, and so they're like, oh, what would be the number one thing to never do in rehab?
Um,
Or one of
don't,
the number one things.
yeah. Um, don't assume that rehab is just passive. Don't assume that
Mm,
I'm going to, my neck is out. I need to go get manipulation. I need my dry needling. I
yeah.
need, I need to be stretched. Like that's the worst thing. And as rehab experts, we're really good with those tools and they're great little resets, right? We're
Yeah.
applying inputs to the body to make it feel good, to create this window of
Hmm.
opportunity for change because really everything's neurological. So all of a sudden we've released that peck,
Yeah.
but I hope you establish new movement patterns on top of that to do something differently because guess what? In about 48 hours, it's going to come back, right? All of a sudden, I need my
Yeah.
needling again.
Yeah.
Well, now because you just treated the tight muscle
Right.
and it ignored,
Not the root
you know,
cause.
not the root cause, and
Yeah.
but you didn't establish new movement on top of that. So it's going to come back every single time because the body's efficient and the nervous system is
Yeah.
it's a creature of habit. It will only do what it knows. It only uses what it can feel. If we
Super
can't feel
interesting.
something different, then we're just going to default back to what the body knows and what the brain knows.
Got it.
So things never kind of move past these tight areas or these little areas of discomfort because we're not integrating the body effectively. We're
Yeah.
not training it to do something differently.
Very interesting. So if you were going to tell an athlete that doesn't have a major injury, but
Mhm.
what is okay, the movement assessment, I think is what you're going to tell me. But would that
Yeah,
be the number one thing that they could do regularly to
yeah,
hopefully help prevent their risk for
yeah,
future injury,
yeah,
especially going into like busy fall sports seasons and all the different things when
yeah.
maybe they've had some time off and now they're about to like blow and go into a heavy
Yep.
season?
Yeah, have some form of basic movement assessment that
Okay.
you can do to check in with yourself, to check in with what your
Yeah.
body's doing or not doing. And then do just do different sports, do
Hmm.
different activities.
I love that.
And if we're, again, coming back to, I don't want to stretch or I don't want to do this, fine, go back on the ground, crawl around, move like a baby, get on balance beams, climb things,
Yeah.
hang off stuff, right? Like do all the stuff that
All the
kids
things that
normally.
6-year-old little boys do all the time.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Go
Yeah.
on the monkey bars and watch how the shoulders open up. The spine that
It's
gets
interesting.
decompressed. They got to
Yeah.
develop grip strength, which will then stabilize their shoulders. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they have to jump off and they have to orient themselves into the air. And then they do front rolls and they do cartwheels and they're doing all this stuff that's, kind of balancing out
Yeah.
the body, but improving body awareness. So now just through play, just through variety, just through
Hmm.
exploration, we've now created improved self-awareness
Yeah.
through play. And we've probably created a little bit more organization and balance in the neurological system and the motor system.
Yeah. Love that. Okay. So we're going to drop the assessment link
Yeah.
into the show notes so that we have that. Now, let's kind of closing out. Let's talk about obviously we have athletic trainers that
Yeah.
listen and strength coaches, physical therapists, people in all the different types of performance rehab, all the things. So you have your advanced movement therapist certification. So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about what that is and who is that the most, can that be for a variety of different performance professionals or is it geared towards a certain group?
So we use it across our clinic. So our physiotherapists, chiropractors, the
Hmm.
clinicians, they're all certified in that, right?
Okay.
So
Yep.
a lot of that helps with the orthopedic assessment, finding the root cause, looking at movement as a form of assessment. So we have these foundations, level one. Level two, we look at more the neurological system, how
Okay.
to use the eyes, the inner ear to kind of
Yeah.
not just rehabilitate, but also for improved performance.
Okay.
Once we start getting the nervous system firing up like it should, and then we get into kettlebells, we get into gait assessment, we get into gymnastics, we get into strength training, all the performance side of things. So it's really because we use it with our movement coaches who are part of the rehab team, but also in the high performance and the clinic, it
Hmm.
bridges that gap between performance and rehab. So
Yeah.
it's really looking at things from a high performance rehabilitation lens. And
Hmm.
when we understand that what's classified as rehab, when we apply that to a high level athlete, because we've given the athlete what they need from a balance perspective, from a neurological perspective, all of a sudden their performance gets better
Yeah.
because we've unlocked something. And on the other side, what's deemed as high performance, if I have, and we have these type of clients, we have little 85-year-old ladies who want to improve their balance, their posture, their strength, and their foot speed.
I
We give them
love it.
deadlifts. They're sitting there and they're deadlifting 100-pound kettlebells,
Wow.
and then they put them
Beautiful.
in the agility ladder. But that's what they needed.
Yeah.
Working with, and I love using this example, and Mitch is okay with it. I have the opportunity to work with the world's strongest man right now, and when he came
Oh,
in to see me,
interesting.
yeah, so he came in to see me. He's local to
Yeah.
Barrie. he reached out to me last year and a half ago, and he came into me and he's just like, my right, every time I squat, my right knee, my right hip, my right low back. I was like, okay, cool. And I look at him squat and he's shifting to the right side. And we looked at his eyes. His eye tracking was a little off.
Hmm.
His left eye was bugging out. So I'm like, okay, he couldn't converge. His neck was a little bit jammed up. Every time we tested his glutes and extension, his neck position actually shut off his glutes, and he couldn't balance on his left leg. So we did some eye tracking exercises. We did some neck positioning exercises, and we gave him rolling to the left. Well, all of a sudden his great groin pain and knee pain went away. He texted me the next day saying, hey, I just PR'd my back squat for 800 pounds for 4 repetitions with no pain. I said, cool.
Wow.
So I use that as an example because those are technically like concussion rehab exercises.
Yeah.
But for him, they became high performance because I'm not going to get him to lift heavier weight. Like
Right.
I don't
Right.
have enough weight for him to lift in my gym. So
Right.
he didn't need to deadlift and
Mhm.
squat more because he's already doing
Yeah.
that. He's already the world's strongest man. How am I going to make him stronger?
Yeah.
My job is to find out why he was
Yeah. That.
overloading that
Mhm.
right side. It's because he had left side inhibition, and it started from the
Very
top down.
interesting.
So we got his brain to start firing up differently on the left so that he could transfer his weight more to the left when he squatted, and it took the pressure off his back, groin, and knee.
What I keep hearing you say is, I feel like anything that I have a problem, I should roll on the ground a lot because that sounds like that's like you've used that numerous
Yeah,
times
I
in
know.
regards to lots. I'm like, I'm gonna just try that with my problems.
And there's different kinds of rolling patterns. So I work with also, I'll tell you another story. So I work with Gymnastics Ontario,
Ah,
and
okay.
every year they do their high performance camps. So
Uh-huh.
they have us come in and we screen all the athletes, and
Yeah.
then most of them are young females. And for their screen, I have them do front splits, both sides, and I have them
Okay.
do back bridges because I need some more extreme testing for them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and of course single leg balance. Now, a majority of these girls, they can't stand on one leg with their eyes closed. I said, ladies, this is a problem. You're standing on a
How
beam
is that possible?
because I said,
Wow.
and I'll break them into two groups. I said,
Uh-huh.
where are my, and their front splits will really dictate this because one
Okay.
side's always tighter than the other.
Yes.
I said, where are my left spinners and where are my right spinners? So when you round off to the left, you
Mm-hmm.
spin left, right? And that never
Yeah.
changes,
Yeah.
right? So all of those individuals, their right leg forward front splits is always better, and their left is tighter because when we spin to the left, it's an extension reflex.
Got
So
it.
all the extensors are dominant on that one side. So, and then my other ones who round off to the right and they spin to the right, they have right side dominance, and their front splits is different.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I have them rolling in the opposite directions that they spin in, and all of a sudden
Okay.
their front splits get better, and all of a
I
sudden
wish I would have known that when I was a
their
dancer.
single leg balance gets better. All of a sudden they're like, I can stand on my leg with my eyes closed. I'm like, because
Huh.
they are doing this highly complex movement. They are spinning through the air, they're going upside down, and
Yeah.
over time they've created this imbalance, not necessarily in their body, but in their neurological output.
Interesting.
One side's firing
Interesting.
up a little bit differently than the other because of that repetition of spinning dominantly to
Yeah.
one side. And all of a sudden,
Mm.
we get them rolling and spinning in the opposite direction, and we create a little bit better control in their
Yeah.
center, and everything cleans up. So I use that as an
Wow.
example because
Yeah.
those, again, they're top athletes and they're
Yeah.
performing
Elite. Uh-huh.
elite stuff. And all of a sudden, we can just clean them up with some simple rolling patterns, some eye exercises, or what have you, in the opposite direction that they dominantly spin in. And all of a sudden, their
Wow.
body cleans up. And now they're like, oh, I don't feel a pinch on my back when I do my back bridges. Well, because both sides are firing up the same now.
Right. Versus one. So interesting. Okay. So, final question for you. With your certification and just all
Yeah.
the things that you are doing with rehab and movement, like where do you want to go with that? What are you hoping to the future is going to be for athletes really at any level, but
Yeah.
in relationship to movement and rehabilitation?
So our end goal is to help 75 million athletes, clients, people by
Love it.
2030. So if we can get, coaches, clinicians
Yeah.
to, look at the body a little bit
Hmm.
differently through a different
Sure.
lens, an integrative approach, not just rehab performance and dividing, it's a spectrum, and
Hmm.
understanding how we can apply the right tools at the right time for the right person. Well, then now we can help more people, and we don't have to silo
Yeah.
ourselves into, if you have a coach who does performance, if they have a better understanding of the rehab side of things. Well, they can better communicate with
Yeah.
with the clinicians, the PTs, the chiros who are getting their athletes out of pain. And now everyone's speaking the same language. And if everyone's speaking the same language, we can help those who are in our care
Yeah.
and build that team around them to help them get to their goals.
Love that. Oh, that's a big goal, but I love it. But to your point, you train a few and they can go train other athletes to do all the different things. Then yeah,
Yeah.
it's a extended reach, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna put all this in the show notes, but say it out loud just so we have it. Where they can find you, website, where they can find you, social media, and
Yep.
anything else where you might want to send people.
So all of the education stuff is at amtcertified.ca. SamScan's on there. There's a couple other programs. The
Okay.
AMT certification's all instant access. It's all pre-recorded. There will be
Awesome.
live coaching that's starting up in the fall. So we will have cohorts coming in where
Okay.
clinicians and coaches can come in and we'll go over case studies. We'll,
Awesome.
answer questions and
Yeah.
get more clarity on how to apply it. Um, my YouTube channel is Tommy Swales. There's lots of longer free format
Say it
content
again.
on
Say it
there.
again.
Tommy Swales.
Tommy Swales. Okay,
Yeah,
Tommy Swales. We'll put it in
it's what
there.
I've got. It's what I've got right now.
All right. I love
Um,
it.
uh,
Hey, easy.
Instagram is swales.tom. Facebook, Thomas Swales. LinkedIn, Tom Swales as well. So I
Awesome.
put up lots of short format, longer
Yeah.
format, as well as the education system up on all my social media and websites.
Yeah. Well, it'd be awesome for people to go check it out, obviously, on your social medias. I know you're putting out content and things that can help people. And then obviously looking at that movement assessment, because that's just
Yeah,
so huge for
yeah,
really trying to help prevent injury,
yeah.
improve rehab, all the different things, especially for all of our youth athletes that are training and moving a lot.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for all your time. Really appreciate all of your insights and everything that you're doing in the world. I know it's a big goal and a big aspiration, but you've got all the
Mm.
things in place, which I love. And so congratulations for that. But thank you again for coming on and sharing your expertise.
Well, thanks, Amy.